And we are live, everybody. We've got Jared Feinberg here, and we are going to talk some Carolina Panthers. And NFL draft is very, very not so far away. So I've been a fan of Jared's for a long time, and we're here. Thank y'all for joining on YouTube and X, wherever you're watching this. But Jared, thanks so much for being here, and I'm excited to get started. Ooh, hold on one second. Let me unmute. There we go. We're good to go now.
We're good to go. We haven't done this in a while, so we're good to go. But it's good to be on, man. I love talking draft, love talking Panthers football. Looking forward to talking about everything that's going to be happening in the next couple of weeks. Like, this is a very interesting time as a Panthers fan, especially if you're at least an outside observer of the team. Maybe not even a fan. If you're just kind of intrigued by what could happen with the Panthers at number 19, it's a sweet spot to be in, considering what happened this past year. So a lot of needs, not a ton of draft picks in terms of just enough to fill those needs, but it's a good conversation we're going to have here.
Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. It's interesting. I was listening to, I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Greg Rosenthal on NFL Daily, but he said, and we can even get into, maybe this is a starting point, but like for him in this particular draft, with there not being so much like top heavy talent outside of the first like three guys, he's like, if you're Carolina at 19, he said, I would even say that that's a better spot to be at than a place like 10 or 11 and 12 in terms of the talent. You know, it's like from 10, 11 to maybe 25. Sure, there is going to be a bit of a talent drop off, but in that range, we're in a draft where it's not going to hurt as bad compared to maybe like 2020. I know 2027 is getting named like the greatest draft of all time. Yeah. And we can get into that as well. But yeah, I think 19 is a really good space to be in terms of what like the options for the Panthers at 19. Where do you like, let me ask you this. If you were Dan Morgan and you had kind of and let's assume, I think we're both in agreement that if Caleb Downs, who I think I saw, that's your number one player, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
So
correct.
If Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Love, and Sonny Styles, I'm assuming that they're not going to be available at 19. But outside of those, who would be like the guys that you would get really excited about at 19?
Yeah, so I kind of was pondering this before the show, and I wanted to go ahead and write down some names, and a couple of names that I have written down for the moment at 19. Avion Terrell, Clemson cornerback. I think the nickel position is a very valuable one in Ejiro Evero's defense. A mixture of Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper Jr., and Mekhi Lemon. There's an outside chance, just depending on how the board falls, that Lemon could still be there.
Right.
Tyson could also still be there. So there's possibilities there. So a combination of those three or four. Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, the safety, he's been lately projected to go as high as the top 10, or at least to number 10 to the Cincinnati Bengals. But there's always that chance that he could be there at 19. And at the moment, he's my favorite prospect for that pick. I think Dylan, I think he's the type of safety they need on the back end, but also provides that versatility to come down the box or to play at nickel if you need him to in some coverage package, some sort of coverage disguise. And then within the trenches, I would go Spencer Fano or Caden McDonald. I've kind of warmed up to Caden McDonald over the last, I would say, probably the last few days, honestly. Like, kind of going back into his tape. I've already got a finalized grade on him. I have him currently, let me pull up my board here. I currently have McDonald as my 26 overall prospect. So the value is kind of there to take him there, in my opinion. McDonald doesn't provide the pass rush value that you would want from a defensive tackle if you were to take one at 19. And remember, the 19th overall pick, it's a top 20 pick. So you got to consider positional value in some cases here.
For sure.
But McDonald is a monster against the run. He can play the one tech. He can kind of give you some versatility or at least some rotational value, especially when you have Bobby Brown III back there as well. So McDonald's certainly a possibility. I think Spencer Fanu could be a possibility as well if he were to fall. And something I've seen kind of discussed today is this draft could be absolutely wild in terms of players that could be available. I've seen Billy Marshall talk about this throughout the day, and also providing some of those clips from Daniel Jeremiah and Mina Kimes' podcast that came out today, and just some of the tidbits you're getting and stuff like that. And really kind of intrigues my mind, who could be there at 19? We see the consensus of who could be there at 19, but we really don't know. There's so much unknown, especially in a draft where I've seen a consensus that this is the worst draft class we've seen since 2013. And remember, that draft class had a horrific first round. Yep. And then you go into day 2, day 3, or at least the second round, third round, and onwards, where you found some excellent depth, some incredible talent that ended up becoming some of the best players in the league. Travis Kelce was a second round pick in 2013. Now he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. He's engaged with the most popular superstar on the planet. So you could find anyone in this draft, but what intrigues me, what excites me is kind of just it's the true unknown. And I know that makes a lot of fans anxious, but there's something about that just,
I agree,
gets my brain going. I think it's our brains going too. Like all these possibilities that could happen at 19. And while these might be my favorite, I think they're going to get a good player at 19.
I agree.
I'm not really concerned about it.
I agree. I think there's a couple of things on that. First of all, rounds 2 and 3 to me, and people that are much smarter than me have said this. This is not my original idea, but like that is the sweet spot of the draft, right? Like getting, especially in this draft. I heard Daniel Jeremiah say this last month, where you're going to get some really good players, and I think I'm specifically talking about cornerbacks, potentially nickels, even depth for like guard. I think, in terms of the guards or the centers that are going to be available, I think there's going to be a lot of players that are available in rounds 2 and 3. I'm not opposed, and I don't know how, maybe we can have a conversation about this. I'm not opposed to us even trading. I mean, it would depend on who's there at 19, like for example, but I'm not against picking up multiple like picks in rounds 2 and 3 if you can get like contributors and starters at that space. Sure. Now, obviously a lot depends on what's going to happen, who's going to be available, all that kind of stuff. But, fans, I think, sometimes get lost in the weeds where they want like the flashy first round player. The reason that, in my opinion, Dan Morgan was so successful last year, and the reason they got so much love is because he got a good player essentially at almost every pick of the draft. This is not like a round 1 draft. The teams that consistently draft well are the ones that are, getting really good guys. And look, no one's perfect. Like, I think I heard I can't think of his name, DeCostas, the general manager for the Ravens, say, if we hit on 66% of our picks over time, we're elite. Like any team that's hitting on. So it's not about like batting 1,000. It's about, can we get really good players throughout this draft? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Like I'm not opposed to us trading back if we can get more capital.
Sure, absolutely. And that kind of goes into that goes into the conversation of how much of an unknown this draft is this year. There's not really a certain thing within this class other than Fernando Mendoza going number 1 overall. That's it.
Yeah.
Like everyone, and I see this all the time where I kind of like circled in Raider spaces, and I'm just like, these guys have nothing to talk about at number 1 overall. There's no drama compared to past years. There's no there's nothing really there to talk about because Mendoza's just that good. But then you talk about, oh, who are they going to take in the second round? Like, that's the intrigue. That's where the sweet spot's going to be.
For sure.
And for the Panthers, you have to consider if there's still a ton of quality talent available at 19, and we could move back, or just in the mind of Dan Morgan, him saying we could move back, able to acquire some capital day 2, day 3, potentially, on top of maybe a future, not future first. I don't think that it's going to cost that much for a team to move up. But if you get a future draft pick as a result too, you're really cooking with gas in this situation.
For sure.
Because there will be talent however far back they trade back. Now, if they were to trade back, I think you kind of run into some possibilities such as Blake Miller or Caden Proctor. I think Proctor could be available there, but I've kind of seen some momentum around Proctor and Detroit. And that kind of makes sense because of what Detroit kind of wants in their trenches. They want physical, hard-nosed players.
I think that's why, honestly, I think that's why they got Cade Mays, right? Like Cade Mays kind of fits what Detroit wants to do in terms of how they want to kind of play that brand of football.
He's a butt kicker. That's what Proctor is too. He's a butt kicker in the trenches. Yeah. And I think if you're Detroit, you want that type of player on either side of the ball. I see Ricky Raines.
Yeah, Ricky just said hi. What's up, Ricky?
Good to have Ricky on the stream tonight. But a couple guys like Blake Miller, Caden Proctor, I think Jordan Tyson could be available later in the 20s, especially if those injury concerns and those toughness concerns are legitimate from inside the NFL. Now, it could all be a smokescreen for a team that's like, oh, we want this guy to fall to us, that type of thing. It happens every year. And in some cases, it works. But Tyson's a possibility. I think Cooper is still a possibility, or even Concepcion. So there's possibilities there. Peter Woods, Kane McDonald, Akeem Messador. I would look at edge rusher too in a certain trade back scenario.
I haven't seen the edge rusher conversation as much because I think everybody's just. This is just my sentiment, but when I've kind of suggested like to be open to edge, not to lock yourself into edge, just to be open to edge. It's like, well, we got Phillips and we got this and we got that. And I'm like, the way that good rosters are built are by adding competition. Like if your player is there. Now, the thing is I think there's going to, in my kind of board, I think there's going to be better players available at 19 than Messador. But if Messador was like, for example, if Dan Morgan thinks Messador is the best player there, I'm not opposed to him, taking Messador. I just don't. I think they're going to go a different route. I do want to let's start at. Here's what I'm thinking. Let's start at offensive tackle. Let's start at the offensive tackle conversation, and then let's kind of move to wide receiver, because there's a lot to talk about in terms of offensive tackle. So let's kind of set the table. First of all, this is not the top end class with offensive tackle that we had last year. You do not have a Membu. You do not have a Banks, in my opinion, in terms of offensive tackle. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Okay. So, and I think for a while, like I see a lot of reports about Freeling to Cleveland at 6. And so there's been a lot of they're going to go, Freeling potentially to Cleveland. I think, to me, my OT1 is Fano. And the reason that he's my OT1 is several things. I think he is once again, his prospect, he's going to be a good tackle. Now, is he going to be like a 4-time Pro Bowler or even a 2-time Pro Bowler? Probably not. Like, I'm not saying that he's going to be this like world-class tackle, but I think if it doesn't work out at tackle, and I heard Brandon Thorne talk about this, I don't know if you saw this or not, but he's like, he would be like a top 3 center or like a top 5 guard if he doesn't work out at tackle. So even there's, the Panthers are always big on flexibility on that offensive line. They want guys, this is why I think Christensen worked so well for them, because he could play so many different positions. He wasn't locked into one position. For me, I guess, what do you see in terms of Fano and the tape, and why is he also your offensive tackle one?
So for Fano, he's my OT2 going into this year.
Okay.
Fano is, let me pull the board here.
Is Freeling your OT1?
It's Caleb Lomu.
Oh, okay.
Fano's teammate. So I've been on the Lomu train since January, and I'm a big fan of Lomu's technique. I think his technique is a lot better, and his mechanics are better than people envision or at least see. I think he does a great job keeping his base wide, hands tight. You want that wide base, tight hands to be able to maintain good technique. He mirrors so well. He's a terrific athlete. I think he can play left tackle. I think he can play right tackle. If it were up to me, I think he'd be the 3rd pick in the draft. I think he's that type of player. But I don't think the league thinks that way. I don't think the league is a big fan of his size. I don't think the league is a big fan that he doesn't have the requisite play strength you look for at that position. I think they are intrigued by Freeling's size, his length, and his ceiling as a run defender, because he did improve over the course of the season last year for Georgia. I think the same thing happened with Lomu. I think the conversation is about the same if Lomu was at Georgia. That's just my personal opinion. But in terms of this tackle class, and Fanu is currently my 11th overall player in this draft. Fanu, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, is that he can play guard if you need him to. He can be a great long-term guard. He can be a great center if you want him to. I want to see him work at right tackle first. But it's something I'm actually going to be writing about for Cat Crave for tomorrow. And one of the things that you have to ask yourself is, when you draft him, are you drafting him to be your long-term center or your long-term right tackle? Especially if he does make it to Carolina at 19. And there's also the question of, if you start him at center, is he still going to be able to switch right over to the right tackle if Moten were to miss time at any point this upcoming season? Because he did miss time this past season, did miss time the year before as well. Yeah. And so you have to ask those questions. Could he still be that long-term option at right tackle or at center? That it's a fair question, but I think either way, Carolina's would get a great player in Fano
for sure.
And I think this is the type of draft where positional value kind of just goes out the door. And while I understand,
we're kind of seeing. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. We're kind of seeing that with the Jeremiah Love conversation before. I don't know how I think you're in the weeds like I am, but I mean, all kinds of Titans fans are mad at Mina for saying that she wouldn't take that there would be other options, like better options at 4. And so there's been this. So it's interesting because all the 3 best players in this draft are at what we would call like non-premium positions, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's a complicated thing because you have a safety, a linebacker, and a running back.
Yeah. And my top 3 players in this class: safety, a linebacker, a running back.
Yes.
All 3 blue chip grades. It's Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, Jeremiah Love.
So you're not this is totally a joke. You're not buying into the fake news that Caleb Downs isn't a good player like I see on the streets here.
Oh my God. Listen, I know Corey Keenan well, the guy that put out the report on
for sure
on Downs.
Yeah, I follow a Substack too. He's great.
Yeah. We're in the same thing. So he was more just putting out like, hey, teams have noted this concern with Downs, but at the same time, a team's not going to flag it as a long-term concern unless they absolutely need to. Now, there could be some teams that do, there could be some teams that don't.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about the knee. If teams are, probably favors Carolina, because if he were to fall, I think he could. There's a decent chance even either of the top safeties could fall.
Yeah.
They're projected to go pretty high. I could see Carolina moving up to get one of them.
Yeah, I guess my issue is people that have I really don't understand the concerns even outside of the medical stuff with Down, because I've seen some people saying that trigger warning. I've seen some people say that like and by the way, is it Thieneman? Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Okay, I get confused every time.
Okay.
Like Thieneman.
Yeah,
it's one of those two. I'll figure it out before the draft.
For me, it's just like he is, even if he's not your best player, I think the worst player he is in this draft is the third best player. Like, even if you want to say Jeremiah Love, because I know Cody has Sonny Styles as the best player in the draft. But any combination of like Styles, Love, or Downs, to me, I mean, those are the guys. Those are the guys for me. So,
And kind of back to the offensive tackle conversation. When we're talking about offensive tackle at 19, I do think, and this was kind of a conversation I think Dave Canales and also Dan Morgan have brought up, whoever they draft at 19, they envision as a long-term asset for this team.
For sure.
Even if it doesn't work out, right now they would view them as a long-term asset.
For sure.
If they do draft an offensive tackle at 19 or even trade back to take one, they view them as a long-term asset. They view him as an immediate contributor at some point this season. Now, there are conversations that we've seen where, do you take a depth player at 19? What's up, man? And that's a fair question. Sure. Personally, for me, you're thinking long term. And I kind of agree on the basis with Canales, with Morgan in that regard. Whoever you draft at 19, that's your long-term focus.
Yeah.
And so I would have no issue with Francis Muigoa if he were to fall, or even if Carolina wanted to trade up for him. That's certainly a possibility. If Fanu was there, he could be your long-term center. He could be your long-term right tackle. At some point, he is going to be on the field and having meaningful reps on the field, making an immediate impact for the Carolina Panthers.
For sure.
You draft Monroe Freeling, same ordeal. Caleb Lomu, same deal. Kane Proctor, Blake Miller, so-and-so. That's what you're going to get. And speaking of players in terms of trading up for, like Dylan or Thieneman, Downs, Styles, Reese, Muigoa, and Fanu are the guys I have written down as players the Panthers could trade up for, in my opinion. I think there's not really an edge rusher you would really trade up for.
I agree.
I think they're a big fan of Nick Scorn. They love his potential. They like Princely. They like Patrick Jones. And also,
by the way, that's someone I think that people have we forgot that before the Patrick Jones. I mean, I haven't forgotten, but like I feel like people are, when people talk about edge rusher, Pat Jones was playing at least the last two games before he got hurt. He was playing good football. I mean, he's going to be a really good contributor for this team. On the tackle conversation, it's interesting because on Mike K was talking about this, how for him, he sees, he says, I think that they might double dip, but he sees center. He's like, I know for sure they're going to take a center in the draft. What's been communicated to him, which makes sense, right? Like, there's a lot of good centers round 3 for potentially, but yeah, in terms of offensive tackle, I think I was not of the belief that at 19 we should take a tackle for a while. I would not be upset if it's somebody like Fano, if it's somebody like, I could be convinced about Lomu too. I just think that is an area you do not want to miss. You don't want to mess up the offensive. I mean, we can't forget what happened Bryce Young's rookie year. Like that was unwatchable television.
Yeah.
That was, and I watched every, I'm a sicko, so I watched every snap, but still that was not a fun experience. And that offensive line, I don't know. I would not be opposed to getting a tackle in round 1 is what I'm saying.
And
by the way, the Rob Star Report. Thanks for being here. Y'all should go follow. The Rob. He's on YouTube. He's on Twitter, on TikTok. He's phenomenal and a really, really good guy that does mock drafts and just really, really good. So and Chase, I'll get to your comment here in a second, but yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and you're right. They do have to get this right at 19, especially if you are drafting an offensive tackle. And I think every year going forward, you got to draft some sort of offensive lineman.
For sure.
Guard, center, tackle. Every year going forward, as long as Bryce Young is your franchise quarterback.
Correct.
If he proves himself to be the guy this upcoming year, I think he's already the guy. You have yourself a quarterback for the next at least 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to go overboard and say he's the guy. He's going to be here forever. We'll see. We thought Cam was going to be here forever.
Yeah.
Look what happened there.
Yeah.
Look what happened there. But, and also to Chase's point, Texans did get ruined this year by a bad offensive line. We saw what happened.
Yeah, that defense was historic. It was
incredible.
Yeah.
If they had an average offensive line, Stroud would have been playing at a high level. I'm confident in that. Texans probably would have been representing the AFC
for sure
in the Super Bowl. That score in the Super Bowl against Seattle, probably a little closer and probably a lot less points. We're probably talking 13-3 ordeal like it was in 2018 with the Patriots and the Rams. But just looking at everything and also with the offensive line, that has to be a priority every year. It has to be. And this center class, it doesn't have a first-round talent, but when you have guys like Connor Liu, Sam Heck, Matt Golbin, who I like from Michigan State, a tackle from Texas A&M, Trey Zune the third. I think he had some good center tape when I watched. I think he could be a potential starting center in the NFL. I did see someone, I think it was Brandon Thorne, who compared Zune to Luke Fortner. I think as in terms of just pure play style. Now there's also Logan Jones, there's Pat Coogan, there's James Brockermeyer. There are options in this draft all across the board, but you're not going to find a first round center in this, or at least this year, unless you consider Spencer Fanu a center. So that's something I'm going to be intrigued by come draft day or draft night, where if a team considers Fanu a center, how high do you take him?
Yeah,
that's going to be an intriguing question. But overall,
I mean, it would have to be. Yeah. I'm trying to think of who the last center was that got taken in the first round. It would have to be like Tyler Linderbaum, right? Like, isn't that the last center that was taken that high?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I just think in terms of, there's just a lot of to me, a lot of the thing that we're going to have to keep an eye out on draft day is going to be Proctor and Freelink, because I have concerns about both of them. Neither of them are perfect prospects, but if we're thinking, how is Dan Morgan doing this? Dan Morgan loves those SEC physical big guy. He doesn't, and maybe we'll get to cornerbacks here in a second, but as much as I love D'Angelo Pons, and as much as I love even Chris Johnson, who I think is undersized as well, I haven't looked. I need to look at his stuff, but a lot of these guys, even Keontae Scott, like these are the guys that are being talked about as like just ballers, gamers, but they don't fit the size threshold that Morgan normally likes. Like he likes his, and Person wrote about this in The Athletic last week, right? And by the way, who's Panthers analyst? I can't, his name, Edgar. Also, he's done really good work on talking about like the kind of size and length that they like for these positions. And as much as I love taking a chance on undersized guys, like I'd be fine with, by the way, I don't know if you feel this way, I would be fine with D'Angelo Pons in the second round. Like he is really, really good.
You're talking my language here. You're talking my language. I love Pons. D'Angelo Pons is one of my favorite players in this draft.
He's ridiculous. He is. Yeah. And I thought, you probably knew this. I thought maybe he was 5'10", 5'11". He's 5'8". Like he's small.
He's small, but
he plays what I see in the tape.
200. Like he plays
big though. He is not afraid of anybody.
He plays like a Seattle corner, like the long, big, physical Seattle corners that stereotype or stereotypical cornerback from Seattle, especially from the Legion of Boom days. Like it even applies for Seattle this time around with this present defense.
For sure. Sure.
Pons, and I know there's some fans that are concerned about Pons' size, and especially when you're in the NFC South going up against guys like Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Like size is a concern. I did see, I retweeted a clip and some of the same stuff I saw on his tape, and I look back at his 2024 tape as well. Pons has taken on some bigger receivers, and has he lost some of those battles? Sure. Like size is going to overtake in that type of in some of these situations, but in certain coverage aspects, especially if you're off coverage, if it's a sit route, if you're in some sort of technique, if you're in the right technique against the right route concept or the right route patterns, you can get on these guys, on these bigger guys.
Yeah.
And Pons is someone I think can thrive on the outside, can thrive on the inside. And I think he does get pigeonholed a couple times or a little bit just because of his size. Like, oh, he's probably going to have a better future at nickel. That could be the case. That's probably the case. But I'd like to see him on the outside too. Let's see what he can do. And I do think some Panther fans get a little PTSD from Charles Smith-Wade. Smith-Wade and Pons are two totally different players in terms of play style. They are nothing alike outside of their stature. That's it. And real quick to your point, and the last time the team drafted a center in the first round, it was Tyler Linderbaum in 2022. So in the highest a center has been drafted since then is Jackson Powers Johnson. And I hope Ricky's in this chat still. Jackson Powers Johnson was one of his guys during that draft class. And I remember being with him at a draft party in Charlotte. And he was like, man, I'm hoping JPJ is a possibility here for Carolina, or at least like in this first round, because he's really good, or even a possibility for Carolina at all in general in that class.
Yeah.
But this is a fascinating thing to see. I'm really curious how the league views Pons. If they view it the same as a lot of people are, which is that Pons is a good player. If he were 6 foot, 130 pounds or 190 something pounds, he's an easy first round pick. but he's
the way he's been talked about by, I know two people we think are like giants in this field, like Jeremiah and Dane. They both think that there's been some alluding that he might sneak into the end of the first round. Like that's how positive the league, I think, thinks about a player like Pons, which says a lot because how many 5'8" corners or nickels have? I mean, there's
not a ton. There's not a ton. And Carolina kind of dealt with the consequences of when you do draft one a little late in the draft. That isn't exactly someone that has the necessary tools per se in terms of just playability for someone of that stature.
For sure.
But Pons, like, he's 5'8", he's 182 pounds, 29-inch arms, 72-inch wingspan. He's a terrific athlete.
Yeah.
And he plays so much bigger than his size. Like, he is super physical at the catch point. He's super physical just in general, especially in run support.
Yeah.
Like, he's the type of corner that I would like to see Carolina maybe go after at 51 if he's there. If he's there, it's not even it might not even be a possibility.
Yeah. And if you look at the players that the Panthers have been kind of linked with, they are going after, I think, nickels. Like, they're really looking at cornerbacks that can also play nickel in terms of a lot of stuff. Anyways, I don't want to get. I want to kind of stay on. We can get to cornerback here in a second.
Sure.
But so we've kind of touched on the offensive line conversation. In terms of wide receiver, I wanted to just kind of tell you who my top guys are, and then you give me some feedback. Tell me where we agree, disagree. I am still the belief that Carnell Tate is wide receiver one for me. I know that it is a very popular thing to say that he's not twitchy and fast, and he's not Malik Neighbors. And yes to all those things. But like, you can still win in ways that aren't. I think we've gotten enamored with people that are, and look, I'm all for TikTok. I'm on TikTok. But I think TikTok culture just wants to see like the fast, flashy, like in and out. And that's why I think Jordan Tyson has become so, and in lots of ways, they see that in and out speed at the top of the route, and they become enamored with it. But like, there's other ways to be a really good wide receiver. I think Carnell Tate is one of the. He might not be twitchy, but he's so smooth in the way, and he's a really good run blocker, which like matters in the league. So for me, I've got Carnell Tate as number one. I have Mekhi Lemon as number two. I think Mekhi Lemon is going to be a really, really good NFL player. I personally have, and this is where I'm excited to hear your feedback on this. I have KC Concepcion as 3 and Omar Cooper as 4. And then I actually have Jordan Tyson at 5. I think that there's a lot of, and it's not just the medical stuff. I think that there's a lot that shows up. And the thing with Tyson is there's so many different opinions, right? Like, people that I know we both respect, like Connor and Trevor, Tyson is their number one guy, right? Like, that's, and there's a lot of people that have Tyson as their number one guy. But for me, so anyways, Concepcion 3, Omar Cooper, and then Tyson, and then I would probably have Boston at 6. So where do you kind of agree, disagree on that? And we'll
frankly, I don't have really any qualms with your rankings, just because there's, like you were saying, there's a lot of varying opinions on these guys. My top receivers in this class, and I'll have a full receiver ranking thing coming out later this week. Jordan Tyson's my number one wide receiver in this class. I'm enamored with his play style. I recently compared him in a mock draft to Odell Beckham Jr. I think he's got that type of talent. Now, the toughness, the medical questions, that's fair, because we're not inside, as kind of quote from the West Wing. Like, I'm not inside in terms of what goes on inside the NFL franchise. And Tyson's my number 8 overall player in this class. I think very highly of him. And then right below him is Carnell Tate as my number 10 player in this class. I love Tate.
Can I interrupt just real quick?
Sure, go ahead.
Do you have as prospects? Do you think of Tyson as a better prospect than Tedero McMillan coming out last year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I know that's probably going to irk some fans the wrong way. I wasn't particularly
people can have a problem with it. Whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't high on T-Mac this past season or this past draft, and I did get some heat for it, but I was glad to be proven wrong. I think I was looking. I have a thing for, or I have a bias towards twitchier players.
Okay,
and it's kind of why I'll just go ahead and say it. I have Casey Concepcion over Omar Cooper.
Yep.
But it's super close between those two grade wise.
So would you have Tate? Is Tate 2 or is
Tate's
Tate
2?
Okay.
Lemon's 3. Casey is 4. Cooper's 5, and then Boston is 6.
Okay.
And I'll reveal the rest of the rankings later this week. I don't want to spoil everything else outside of that, but those are my top receivers. I think we both all view them in a similar fashion. I know fans have a concern about Concepcion's hands. I think it's more of a catching technique, and I think that's very coachable. When I first started playing football in high school, I had some issues with drops, and it was more a catching technique thing. So I worked on it, and I'll be the first to admit, or I'll go ahead and just admit this. I wasn't playing a ton. I barely played in high school, but it gave me a lot of valuable lessons, and it taught me a lot about this game. And so catching technique is super important as a wide receiver.
For sure.
And I think Concepcion can work on that. And I don't think he's necessarily has super bad hands. I think he just has those moments where he claps for the ball instead of just kind of patiently waiting, diamond hand, kind of just waiting for it to come in. Fingers first, let the ball come in and conceal the catch.
I agree.
So I don't really have an issue with Concepcion in that regard. I think he's one of the best route runners in this class. He's a twitchy player. I think that's the difference for me between Cooper and Concepcion is KC is a little bit more twitchier for me.
Yep.
He's more explosive after the catch, and he will split defenders after the catch. I don't think Cooper has that explosiveness to win after the catch. He can create after the catch, make defenders miss, break a few tackles or so. Like there's that popular clip against Illinois where he catches a slant off the RPO from Fernando Mendoza, breaks 5, 6, 7 tackles, breaks tackles from basically every player on defense, and it's a 60-yard gain because he couldn't get brought down. He made the first guy miss, shut off the next guy. It was like a Marshawn Lynch type of run.
Yeah.
Someone said he had like jello-like legs. Like it were just like stretchy legs. Just he couldn't go down just because he has such great lower half, like super strong in the lower half and the core. It allows him, and a good center of gravity that allows him to stay balanced overall. So I don't have an issue with your rankings whatsoever. I mean, if Mekhi Lemon was someone's number 1 wide receiver, I wouldn't have an issue with it. I really wouldn't.
Yeah.
Same with Tate. Like Tate I see him
been mocked to the Rams a lot. I see Mekhi Lemon, and he is that kind of. I'm not calling him Puka, but like they like those guys that can kind of. They don't care as much about the separation. They just want physical wide receivers. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know Mekhi Lemon's 5'11", but he's a really good player that if utilized the right way is going to. I think it's going to shock people how good he has, and I'm not ready to say he's got like JSN kind of talent, but like I think the high upside would be a player like because primarily he works out of the slot.
He certainly has that upside.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He kind of works out of the slot. Let me ask you this: in terms of what the Panthers need from a playmaking ability at wide receiver, of all of those maybe top 6 guys, who do you think, like if we were to put away talent and evaluation for a second, and we're just primarily talking about like fit with the skill level that the players represent, who would be the guy for you? Would it still be Tyson or would it be somebody else?
Ooh, good question. So personally for me, Concepcion. Right now, it's Concepcion. And I think Cooper fits that as well. If you're looking for guys that operate out of the slot and can provide value as a blocker, can create after the catch, can be reliable over the middle of the field, like Mekhi Lemon fits that profile. But sure, I do think the speed element lacks at wide receiver right now. And sure, there are some fans that will say, why not give Jimmy Horn a chance? Jimmy Horn is a smaller receiver. He's a raw player, and he showed he was a raw player last year. He did show some moments of winning at the top of his routes, getting clean out of his break, accelerating out of his break, but it was too far few in between, and they didn't trust him enough to be that reliable, deep vertical threat. McMillan was their vertical threat. He was their big-time playmaker. And then Coker kind of emerged as that late in the season as well.
And you might be too nice to say this. I don't know. But like Jimmy Horn is not in the same sentence as Casey Concepcion as a prospect, right? Like what Concepcion would offer you, or even Omar Cooper Jr., like what they would offer in terms of, I think it would be big.
They are worlds better than Jimmy Horn. So I want to kind of settle that right here, right now.
Yeah, we're aligned there. We're aligned
Jimmy
there.
Horn can provide more value than Omar Cooper and Casey Concepcion, I do have questions for you that I would like to have answered. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean I like Jimmy. I think Jimmy but to me, Jimmy's more of a developmental guy. You know, like he's a guy that they can do different things with. Yeah, I agree with that because I actually think that they want to play Coker and more on the outside than the inside, which I think would surprise some fans. But listening to, I don't know if you ever listened to Processing Blue, but like listening to Mike and Alex talk about this, they said, and it wasn't a definitive statement, but like Mike did make a statement, if they want to play Coker, and the way he was saying, once again, this is conjecture, but like the way he was saying it, it's like there was something along that he had heard from me, and what I heard was that they want to play him on the outside, and they want more of a slot wide receiver in terms of what they can offer him. And yeah, I agree. Concepcion would be really good. Omar Cooper Jr. would be really good. They need somebody that they didn't have somebody that could create, in my opinion, a mismatch against a linebacker last year or against a safety, right? They needed somebody, and Coker wasn't even good for, Coker wasn't even healthy for a long, there were weeks where he wasn't healthy. So to me, having a guy that can create stress on the defense, middle of the field, short yard, wherever it is, I'm aligned with that. I think for me, Mekhi, Concepcion, all those guys. I like Boston more than most, but I still don't think Boston is the kind of, I mean, he
doesn't fit the profile that they need right now.
They like those big wide receivers. Like Dan loves big wide receivers, but I just don't think that they're going to go for another kind of big. I think they want somebody that is fast. And Concepcion is 6'2". Like we're not talking about like a 6 foot or 5'11" guy. Like he's tall. And so yeah, we're in lockstep there. I think one of those guys would be big, and I think both of them might not be available, but I think at least one of them is going to be available at 19.
Sure.
That's my guess on that.
And for Panther fans, I kind of want to have an understanding of like what type of slot guys they could be looking for. Lemon, Concepcion, Cooper. I'd even go Antonio Williams. I'm super high on Antonio Williams. Clemson. Jeremy Bernard, who was Mike K's second round pick in his latest mock draft for the Charlotte Observer.
I didn't get to read that. Who did he mock in the first round? Do you remember?
Denneman.
Okay. Nice.
Skylar Bell is certainly a possibility there. Bryce Lance, Cyrus Allen. Kevin Coleman from Missouri. Jacoby Lane if they want a bigger guy. Eric Rivers if they're looking for a later round guy. But I think based on Canales' comments, a receiver is going to be taken in the first 3 rounds more likely. I'd be shocked if they don't get a receiver at some point in the first or at some point in the first 3 rounds. My favorites in terms of those first 3 rounds, Casey, Cooper, Williams, Bernard. I would even go with Burks, Bell, Brennan Thompson from Mississippi State, and Bryce Lance as kind of like that 3rd round target.
Yeah.
So you have options in this class. This is a good receiver class.
Yeah, it's really deep. It's really deep. I think this is a really deep wide receiver class. It doesn't have, I would say,
it's not 20,
that Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson kind of like feel, but like there's still really, really, really good wide receivers in this.
You don't have like a Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. Like that 2024 class was incredible. And some of these guys from 2024 just they haven't had the most productive year 2s, but they're going to be great receivers.
I agree.
Some of these guys it takes a minute to transition.
I agree.
And some of these guys even had injuries. Like Brian Thomas Jr. had some injuries and inconsistencies. He kind of got going later on the season, trade rumors, all that. It's just a mess. And then, of course, Harrison, he's still trying to figure things out. I think he's on a similar trajectory like his dad. Like they both had almost the same exact stats in their first 2 years. And then we saw what his dad could do.
Oh, that's interesting. I haven't heard that before. I haven't done a deep dive on that.
Well, I don't know. I think it was probably in week 16 or 17 where that stat came up, and it's probably different at this point, but they have similar stats to this point in their careers, in their respective careers. I think Harrison Jr. is going to be a terrific receiver in Arizona. Just getting him a quarterback at some point.
Yeah, that might help.
Find Harrison quarterback, but we're not here to talk about the Cardinals. Here to talk about the Panthers. We'll move on. We'll keep the train going. We'll keep the train going.
Yeah. I do have to ask you about this because I feel like this has been a hot topic of conversation, especially on Panthers Twitter. But what are your thoughts on Sadiq at 19? Because I think that there is a pretty big divide in the Panthers community as it pertains to Sadiq. I've got my thoughts, but I want to get your opinion first, and then I'll respond.
So I have Sadiq with a late 1st round grade, and I think that fits him well. I will say I was not super high on Colson Loveland last offseason. And I regret that now looking back. I think I looked too much at some of his concerns as a blocker, as an inline blocker, where his real strengths were as a pass catcher. He was really, terrific.
Yep.
I have Sadiq graded higher than I did Loveland this past year. I think going back, I would have Loveland as my number 1 tight end from that class. But anyways, I think like we were talking about earlier, positional value kind of just goes out the door in this draft. Like, I think if it were in a better draft class, I think if it was a top receiver prospect in King and Sadiq at 19, I think you go with the receiver. just depending on who provides that value over the middle of the field, who provides that dynamic ability. I wouldn't have an issue with Sadiq. Probably one of my favorite players in this class, one of my favorite watches, but just realistically, is Sadiq worthy of a top 20 selection? I think that's a fair question. I know Ricky Raines has had a similar fair question about that. I know he's talked about that on Panthers on Tap.
I agree.
And Sadiq, I'm more in on his inline ability as a blocker. I think he's a better blocker than given credit for, especially when you're attempting to create displacement on the edge as a tight end. I think he provides the technique. I think there are flashes of power, especially in the lower half. He has a strong lower half to provide some of that displacement and power. He's got the grip strength. He's got the technique. I think he can continue to develop his play strength. I think he can continue to add more mass. He's not going to get any bigger. He's not going to get any taller. He's a smaller tight end.
For sure.
But at the same time, Sadiq provides ample value as a pass catcher. Now, there are some questions of whether or not, of like which role is he going to be taking over if you were to pick at 19 in terms of what type of tight end. Are you getting a move tight end, or are you getting an inline guy? I think you're getting both. I think you're getting both with Sadiq. But then comes the question, do you still draft him at 19 considering he provides both? He provides that value in both aspects. I don't think he's an elite player as a blocker, as a run blocker, pass protector. I don't think he's an elite receiver overall. And I think he's very good in, at least as a pass catcher, and he's sufficient as a blocker. And I think that's a fair observation. It wouldn't surprise me if he were a trade down target. It wouldn't surprise me if he went well ahead of Carolina. Like there's Baltimore that could use another tight end. There's
been reports of even Kansas City maybe being interested.
Potentially. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would even consider the Rams as a potential destination.
For sure.
You want to kind of reunite Terrence Ferguson and Kenyon Sadiq, kind of form that Oregon tight end room again. You have a long-term tight end room because the Rams, they run a ton of 13 personnel.
Yeah.
And they could thrive with that type of versatility out of 13 personnel. But anyways,
he'd be a great fit over there.
He would.
Sadiq reminds the conversations around Sadiq remind me a little bit of Kendrick Falk, because I could see them as early as like 13,
yes,
all the way to the back end of the first round, or even dropping out of the first round. More Falk than Sadiq for me, but I would not be surprised if there's such a wide range for Sadiq. Here's what I think about Sadiq. Sadiq to me is a phenomenal football player, and he is worthy to me of a back end of the first round kind of pick. But I do think we need to temper expectations. Like we need to talk about what would be, because I think when Panthers fans think about Sadiq and they think like he would change our offense, they're thinking that he's going to get the targets that T-Mac did. And I don't see him getting 7, 8, 9 targets a game. I see him more in anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 targets a game. But you're right. His block, he is a really good blocker. One of the comps that I think Nate Tice said is like he actually compared him to Tommy Tremble in a way. He's like low end Tommy Tremble with his blocking ability, but high end Vernon Davis, right? Like there's a high end of potentially like he's built that kind of way. So for me, and I want to keep pounding Pod, who by the way, he's got a great podcast. Y'all should go check him out. I'm always hesitant drafting a tight end in the first round. Feel like they usually don't work out. Mine is Brock Bowers, and I'm sure there are a couple others. That I agree with that too, because I think we've gotten lost. People have gotten enamored with last year, right? Luther Burden, Tyler Warren, even the year before Brock Bowers. I just don't see Sadiq in that same category from a pass catching perspective. Now, could he get there with time? Sure. Like, who knows what his development, but I just want us to temper expectations that he is not this Brock Bowers line him up wherever you go and get 8, 9, 10 targets a game. right? So that's kind of where I'm at with
that's Sadiq. A fair take. And for the most part, I agree with you. And I would say if you're getting a tight end of similar caliber to Loveland or Tyler Warren or even Brock Bowers of late, like those are guys that are worthy of first round picks. Looking back now, like in hindsight, I think I should have had Love much higher. But I think those are two other guys that are worthy of first round choices at tight end. I think Sadiq's conversation around whether he is worthy of a first round pick, that is fair. If Sadiq is not the Panthers' cup of tea at 19, that's fair. Again, this is a top 20 selection. This isn't we're getting I think sometimes we think it's like a back half or it's a like late first round pick. No, this is still an early draft pick. It's a top 20 pick. So you have to consider the value in some cases here. Again, like I said earlier, sometimes or at least in this draft, the position value is probably going to go out the door. But in some cases, it doesn't for some teams. They do consider positional value as an important aspect to considering who they draft and based on their weighted big board. We hear best player available all the time. It's not like, hey, the Panthers are going to draft. If a quarterback's the top player available, they're not going to draft a quarterback because they already got a quarterback.
Right.
They're not going to draft.
Yeah, if
it's a running back, they're not going to draft the best running back available just because it's on there.
I think we have gotten a little lost in the weeds with like BPA because I think a lot of times it's like, oh, BPA. And it's like, yeah, BPA is the priority, but you also have to understand how BPA fits with scheme, with the players you have, with kind of right. Like you can't. I mean, it's important, but it's not just like there have to be other considerations outside of just BPA.
And I wrote for Cat Crave, it came out today, about why the Panthers need to avoid the running back position at 19. If by some reason Jeremiah Love were available at 19, I think the Panthers should pass on him. Because
interesting. Very interesting.
Because there is
we disagree on that, by the way. Yeah.
Okay. And that's fine. And the reason I say that is I think there are much higher priorities. And I think on a weighted board, the Panthers are probably going to have receiver graded highly over a running back.
For sure.
And maybe even tight end, maybe even a safety over Jeremiah Love. And I think they're going to run the risk. And I think it's the correct call at this time to roll with Chuba Hubbard, Jonathan Brooks, they are super high on. Trevor Etienne or Trevor Etienne, however you pronounce his last name now, or AJ Dillon. So the running back room is set. I do think they may target a running back late in the draft or even as a priority free agent, but I think their running back room is set. I don't think that's going to change whether Love is on the board or not. If he were on the board, it is a tough call. And I do love Love as a talent. But in this case, I think positional value and weighted team need is going to out-prioritize what Love brings to the table. And look, Love could provide incredible impact on third down, even as a runner, on run game concepts and whatnot. But do you think receiver takes priority? I do think safety takes a priority. I do think cornerback could take priority if there's a top cornerback there. I do think defensive tackle takes priority. Offensive tackle. I think there are more positions that take priority for Carolina at 19 than running back. And I think if this running back class were better, maybe it gets considered. But I think it's the one position I think Carolina has to avoid at 19.
And I think, by the way, I think it's good that we've pretty much been in agreement about 95% of the stuff here. So I think this is this is a good thing. But yeah, to me, Jeremiah Love is such a good player that it's very, very hard to say, for whatever reason he kept falling, which by the way, I think he's going to be a top, at worst 7 selection. So even in this hypothetical, it's not going to happen. But I think he would give you, as much as I like Brooks and I want Brooks to be good, Chuba Hubbard wasn't phenomenal last year. And I know that he was hurt. I know that there's all kinds of things that were part of this. But I think Jeremiah Love would give you a different kind of playmaker but once again, it's like, depending on where you think about him in comparison with Ashton Jeanty, like Ashton Jeanty, because that Raiders offensive line was so bad last year, his impact wasn't really a good impact because you need a stable offensive line. So yeah, I think all in all, he's going to be gone by 19. But yeah, we're saying the same thing. Like BPA has to be contextualized as well.
It's likely going to be a non-concern anyway.
Correct.
But we have to think of the possibilities. I think this is something that teams also think about a lot. It's like, what if this possibility were to happen? This, and that. They usually don't get into that until the last couple of weeks of the pre-draft process, because by then their board is set. I think right now the Panthers, I think this week they would likely have their draft meetings and stuff like that, but more so to finalize their draft board, have the guys they want ready to go, ready to target in a couple weeks in Pittsburgh. And then you go on from there. They do their own mock drafts too. They do mock drafts all the time, especially late in this process. They're even going to look online to look at the mock draft process.
I mean, Canales said that, right? I mean, when you have, remind me again, is it Eager? Who is the guy that came over from PFF?
Eric Eager. Yeah. Eric's
a
great guy. I've had some interactions with him. He's terrific.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, very, very cool.
Online interactions, not necessarily in person. I will say there is a fun story there. There was a possibility that I went to the Saints game with a friend. There was a chance that I was going to be able to interact with Eric before the game, be able to go up to the sideline, maybe even interact with him. Something kind of popped up last minutes, and we ended up getting to the game right as it was starting. So it didn't get to work out, but at some point, I know we'll likely end up running into each other. Hoping to be in Charlotte here at some point in the next couple weeks before the draft. So that's an interaction. I was like, there's a saying, there's a FOMO saying, fear of missing out. That was kind of a missing out moment.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it is what it is. But I just kind of want to point that out. But
yeah, hopefully other opportunities will come. But yeah, that'd be great, man.
Yeah.
I think he's done a lot for this team in terms of just
he's been a true blessing for the front office to help out with the analytical side, especially when they're projecting trade ups, trade downs,
correct,
potential runs. Eric does even before he was hired by the Panthers, he did a terrific job with PFF when he was with them, and before PFF had their major downfall. That's
a whole nother pod, but
a whole other pod. Yeah. I mean, there's like hundreds of pods already about what happened there, but Eric has done a great job with the Panthers, helping the front office out. I think he's been an integral part, and I will go ahead and say I think there's a realm where he may end up being a GM in the NFL at some point.
No, I agree. I think the same thing can be said for Brandon Tillis. I think both. If the Panthers continue to kind of get more public recognition, like those guys are going to get gotten. That's not correct English, but like, you know what I mean? Like somebody's going to snatch those guys up. I mean, we already saw Tillis have an interview with Atlanta, and some were saying, well, that was more of a formality. Well, they still interviewed him. So I think it's the sentiment around the league is that Carolina has something brewing, and it's something that's good. I know we're kind of at an hour and 9 minutes. I want to kind of honor honor your time, but like in terms of the positions in rounds 2 and 3 that you're thinking about in terms of depth. I brought up the idea that I thought that there was going to be a lot of cornerbacks, defensive backs available. I think there's going to be interior offensive line that's also going to be available in that space. I think I saw a tweet by you in terms of Malachi Lawrence, where we might see this a little differently, but I think Malachi Lawrence is like, if he's available in the second round, I would have absolutely no problem with him at 51. Like he's
exciting.
Yeah.
He's an exciting player. And there's a reason why people online are talking about him as a potential late round pick. Because he's got the size, he's got the length. He's explosive off the line of scrimmage. He doesn't have great bend, but he has good cornering ability. And he's also got a pass rush back. Even though that secondary move is not going to be there all the time. He definitely struggles with that. So,
well, and he was a UCF, right?
Toolsy type of pass rusher to take a chance on. I think it's a similar case to what it was with Nick Scorton, but I think Lawrence is an older prospect in this regard. If Lawrence was a much younger prospect here, I think you're talking middle of the first round, like maybe top 15 for Malachi Lawrence. But I mean, like I was saying earlier, you could see guys that you had no idea were even possibilities in the top 15, top 20 that end up getting taken. Like that's certainly a possibility. And Lawrence could be one of those guys. But anyways, like Lawrence, I would have no issues with. But yeah, back to your point. Sorry.
Yeah, so in terms of positions that you would kind of want to think about in rounds 2 and 3, what are some of the guys that are kind of high up on your board that you would like for the Panthers to kind of look at?
Yeah, so one of my favorite players in this draft is Trayton Stukes, who's going to come in for a 30 visit for the Panthers. Yeah. And I think it's more just like a medical checkup just to see how his knee is. And some people are a little hesitant. I've seen some comments like, oh, I don't know about drafting a guy who's older, who's got an injury history. Like, I'm not sure about that. Stukes someone compared it to Jonathan Brooks. Brooks was coming off a torn ACL coming out of Texas. Stukes had the ACL injury at the end, I believe, of the 2024 season, and then like missed the first few games, then came back and had a dominant season. If he were a younger prospect, even with the injury history, first round pick, like I think he's that type of talent. I had to deduct points a little bit during my evaluation just because of the age and also the injury history. So he's a early second round talent for me. Stukes is someone I think could transform the secondary for the Panthers, even if they do drop to safety. I think Stukes provides the ball skills. He's got the run game ability. He's got the versatility as well. I think he's one of the more versatile defensive backs in this class.
For sure.
If Stukes were the pick at 51, I would be absolutely stoked with the selection. Nice. He's one of my favorite players. I'm just trying to look down the board here.
Yeah, I kind of put you on the spot.
Yeah, no worries. Josiah Trotter is my third-ranked linebacker. I know that's gotten some heat in some ways just because there's a popular opinion of Jacob Rodriguez being the number 3 linebacker in this class. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think, and hopefully maybe Ricky's still watching this, he and I have talked about, he and I see Rodriguez in a lot similar light. I like Rodriguez.
He can't be the pick at 19 for me. I think we've gotten really enamored with
way too early. Even like first round for me for Rodriguez, I'm out. I'm out.
He's way. I think he would be a great and here's where the nuance is, right? Like that's not saying he's not going to be a really good pro and a really good player.
No.
But I just think that there's going to be better players. My concern with Rodriguez, sorry, we were talking about the Arizona guy for a second, but my concern with Rodriguez is he's undersized, which there's other undersized players that have succeeded. I'm not saying that's everything, but I think like we could be looking at red zone one day and he really could have like, oh, he punched the ball out 3 times. He's that kind of player where he causes turnovers. He's really good on his feet, but down to down. And this is where I might be one of the only guys that's higher on like CJ. I think we've really forgotten about how good CJ Allen can be.
I think Allen can be a good pro too. I have concerns more so. Like I think his hips are a little tight.
Yeah.
I think he struggles with transitions at times. I think he's a good man defender against tight ends or running backs, but I think some of his transitions are a little stiff in a way, and that does kind of concern me. He does bite the cheese a little bit too much for my liking, but
he's young too. I think he's like 21, and you see that.
He's a younger guy.
In the tape.
I think Carolina's going to be obsessed with some of these younger guys too. Like Allen just turned 21.
For sure.
Like he's a couple months removed from turning 21, but Rodriguez, like he's got great instincts. I think that's not dispute. I do not dispute that. He has great instincts. He knows how to avoid blocks, but I think in this system for Carolina, he's going to need to be in some cases overhang defender where he can avoid those blocks, but he shouldn't be fitting the run, taking on blocks, because the tape is not great when he does take on blocks. At least from my perspective.
I don't know what the terminology is because you've been doing this for a couple of years or a few years more than me, but like block destruction or getting off, whatever the term is for getting off of blocks.
Block deconstruction. Yep.
Yeah, he's not like he really struggles with that, and
he did not grade well for me in that.
And I think his athleticism allowed him. And I know Panthers on Tap loves him, so I'm not trying to. We both like him, by the way. Like he's phenomenal. I think he's going to be a really good second-round pick. But to me, he was able to get away with some of that in college because of how freaking athletic he was. Right? He had really quick feet. He was able to kind of like go in and out. But I just think in the NFL, it's a different. This is a grown man. He
had a great defensive line too. Like that defensive line was deep with talent. They have some guys that could be very good players for the 2027 draft.
For sure.
But for me, in terms of linebackers, like Trotters is my LB3. I think he's a terrific run defender. I think he can not only deconstruct blocks like nobody's business, and he's not the biggest guy either, but he's got range. He's got power in his pads. Like he will bring some pop, serious hitting power. And sure, he is a younger prospect, and he's pretty raw in terms of pure coverage ability. But again, he's a younger guy. He's not going to have the stress of being relied on as one of the guys if he were drafted by Carolina at 51. If he were there at 51, taken at 51. Because they got Devin Lloyd now. You have a star linebacker to lean on in these cases, and they're not always going to be.
I agree.
They're not always going to have two linebackers on the field because if the draft goes well, they can use multiple defensive backs to their advantage. And I think that's going to be a great issue. That's going to be a good issue to have for Carolina. They want to have that young talent and developmental opportunity, especially from guys they draft early on, like Scorton. That I kind of view Scorton, or at least Trotter, in the same light as Scorton in terms of kind of being higher on him, but also believing in the talent, believing, hey, he can still grow in coverage. He's got the toolkit to be at least an average coverage guy. If he can be at least average in that area, like the Panthers linebacker room is rock solid, great again. Like it's
where do you have Anthony Hill?
Anthony Hill is my 8th ranked linebacker.
I also have concerns. About Anthony. I don't think he's that low for me. I think he's 5 or potentially. I'll need to look at what I've got on my list, but like I am not enamored with Anthony Hill.
And like looking at my board, like Hill has a pretty close grade for me between Rodriguez and Hill. Like it's not that far off at all. They're very closely graded together. A lot of my third round graded linebackers are graded very close to each other.
Yeah.
So if he was LB6 or LB3 for someone, I wouldn't have an issue with it. It's just how I saw on film. And also I did play one of the positions I played in high school was linebacker. So I have little bit of an understanding of the position. So I do view Trotter at a higher light than a lot of these guys.
Where's Goldie for you?
Goldie is right behind Trotter as my LB4. Okay. And again, that's another position group I'll have out, I think, hopefully later this week for Cat Crave. Let me look at some other players on my board here that I'm higher on. Like Malachi Lawrence, I'm certainly higher on. Let's see, Akeem Messidor, someone I'm high on. I'm so a big fan of Peter Woods. I think the top 10 hype it's significantly, it's not going to happen. But I think Woods if you're allowing Woods to play from an attacking 3-tech in an even or odd front, you're going to get the best out of him. I think he's a disruptor. He's got great movement skills. I think he's got, well, not just great, he's got phenomenal movement skills for someone his size. But I do think that hype has certainly died down. I'm going to be higher on him. If I'm wrong about him, that it is what it is. Like, it's not my job to be right on these guys. It's my job to provide the best analysis I can on these guys.
For sure.
You know, thankfully I'm not a GM. I never want to be a GM. I do not need people telling me, hey, you should be the Panthers GM. I say absolutely the F not.
Yeah, that's way too much work, man. That's way too much work. That's
someone else's job. I like where I am right now. I don't want to lose any hair.
I
don't want to have gray hair by the time I turn 30. You know, if I were to become a GM, I don't need that in my life.
Where do you see Caleb? And I know we're going over here, but I'm just really enjoying this conversation. Where do you see Caleb Banks? Because Caleb Banks to me is such an interesting player where he is, I mean, he always gets in position to make the tackle, but then just has one of the worst, he can't tackle the guy when he's there, right? Like he
has balance issues, technique issues in that regard. Like that's something he'll need to work on the next level.
I think Peter Woods is a lot better than Caleb Banks.
On my board, yes, I think he's a much better prospect. But Banks is my 24th ranked player on my board. I don't think he goes that high, just because of the foot concerns. Like he's had foot injuries the last 2 years, and for someone that's 6'6", 330, and having consistent foot issues like that scares people. That definitely scares some people. So I like him. I think he can be a great talent in the NFL. I just don't know if you take him super, super high. I do think I did have some legitimate concerns in the summer about him. I think those still hold true from the summer. And the tape kind of in the games he played this past season, still kind of confirmed what I saw on tape. But Banks is certainly someone I do like him. I just don't think he's somewhat of a target for Carolina just because of the foot injuries and stuff like that. Like that's the one type of player injury history wise, like they probably should avoid.
This DT class to me is just not it. There's
bad.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you said it. I'm glad it's not that I don't think any of them can be contributors, but I think that, and this is a wider conversation about the NFL at large too, what Seattle and Philadelphia have done with quick pressures and defensive tackle play. I think we've gotten enamored with maybe DT is a premium position and we need to go find those guys. But at the same time, you have to be aware of the draft and how good the draft is for that particular class. Just because you think it's it would be great to have a super good high-end DT.
Well, if the draft isn't giving you that, then I don't want to reach on a Caleb Banks. I don't want to reach on, even I know that you have Woods higher, but like a lot of these guys, there's all Christian. To me, Christian Miller has one of the highest floors in terms of what he could be. But I think we both like great. What's his last name? The guy from Oklahoma,
Grayson Houghton.
Yeah, to me, he's a contributor, right? Like he's not going to be your main guy, but as a 3 tech to be able to kind of put pressure on, I like him, but once again, he's not a first round pick, right? So none of these guys to me are screaming overwhelming first round talent at the defensive tackle. So
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have this type of class. Of course, I'm going to be higher on Woods than basically everyone else. I know that there's a couple people that are in the same boat as me, but
Panthers culture likes him, right? You and Panthers culture really big on him.
And I see him.
Well, y'all watch a lot of the. Are you also a Clemson fan? Do you root for Clemson? Okay,
yeah. I will say, admittedly, there is some bias there, but it's because I've seen every game. I understand what the defense is, what Clemson runs, and what they were asked to do. I think Woods, can showcase his true potential in a better system in the NFL. I think a coach or a defensive coordinator in the NFL can figure out what to do with Woods.
I agree. Well, maybe one day we'll do a deep dive on how I think Dabo is not a very good coach. Maybe you'll push back on that or not. I don't know, but like I'm done with the Dabo experience, man. I'm done with the Dabo
experience. I'm that way, man. Like it's. I will reserve my comments for a later date. Maybe like this upcoming season, if if the transfers just kind of, if he completely misses out on the transfers here, like he added some guys in the portal, but if he swings and misses with these guys, it's all over.
Yeah,
at Clemson, all over. I don't care about the buyout. I don't care how much it is. Out the door. Change of pace. Someone that can go with the times and help Clemson, it's still a very respected program, but I'm not going to do it tonight. I'm not going to do it.
We're going to protect our peace. We're going to protect our peace.
Exactly. We are going to do that tonight.
Well, Jared, I'm really thankful. We've been going for an hour and a half. This has been a lot of fun. I hope that we can continue to collaborate and do more of these, hopefully. But this, where can people find you? You write on Cat Crave, right?
I do. I write on Cat Crave. I also do work for on SI Sports Illustrated with Jaguars, Chiefs, and Rams. You guys can find some of my content on there. I'm going to be doing some draft work, and also a little bit of a hint. My final mock draft comes out at the end of the week for the NFL. 3 rounds. Going 3 rounds. This is the most rounds I've ever done in an NFL mock draft. I've been doing this for 8 years. This is the most I've never done a 3-round mock draft or posted a 3-round mock draft. 3 rounds could get a little dicey at some points.
Amazing.
We're going to have some fun with this one.
Trades or no trades?
We might have a couple trades.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see how the draft goes. I'm going to do it in one take. I'm not going to keep restarting. Like I can't tell you how many people will attempt to start a mock draft and then they're like, "Oh, I don't like how this is working out," and then they just throw it in the trash or like refresh their tab and then restart the mock from scratch. So I do that constantly until I feel like this is the one. But I'm going to go one take, see how it goes. If it doesn't go great, thankfully I'm not a GM. Thankfully I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about my job in this instance. So we're good to go there. But awesome. 3-round mock draft in the week. We're going to have some fun with that. I'm excited for it.
Yeah.
And I will say, and you were asking me where to find me. You can find me on X, Jared _ NFL draft. This is actually my backup account because my original account, JRod NFL draft, was hacked. It's now suspended. So I'm not going to worry about that account anymore. You can also follow me on Blue Sky if you guys are on there. I'm over there at JRod NFL Draft. You can also find me on Threads, same thing, but I don't even post on Threads anymore. I'm going maybe try to, probably not going to work out. But other than that, you can also find my work at Cat Crave over at Fansided. Do writing for them all the time as a lead contributor, and also do work for on SI with Jaguars, with Chiefs, with Rams to kind of gain a broader perspective of how other teams operate. So yeah, that's where you guys can find me. Thomas, it was a pleasure, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man, this was fun. I'm sure we'll keep communicating and yeah, hopefully we do this again soon.
Absolutely. Totally down for it.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll talk soon. Thank you all for watching and hope you all have a great night.